what to do. Now when life will day, oh, you think of better tomorrow. Mama, yeah, yeah. Opportunity. Opportunity.
Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Nigerian In Diaspora's View. Like we told you guys last week, we have interesting topics aligned for you, and the main issue today is going to be cultural and moral aspects of African laws. Recently, Nigeria passed the Same Sex Act bill, signed it into law, and it has risen a lot of uprising and uproar in Nigeria. And with me today, I have informed gentlemen who are going to look at this issue, both culturally, morally, and from religious points of view. So please stay tuned and let's have a good discussion today. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Pharmacy Express and Medical Supplies, located at 10209 East Colonial Drive, Orlando, Florida 32817. Get your prescriptions and free home delivery today and enjoy an exceptional Pharmacy Express and Medical Supplies customer satisfaction. Call Pharmacy Express and Medical Supplies today at 407-273-0021. The number again is 407-273-0021. At Pharmacy Express and Medical Supplies, if we don't do it right, we won't do it at all.
Joining me today in my panel of discussion here, on my left is Father Tony Eseke, doctoral student in the University of Florida in intercultural communication. He's a Nigerian and also a Reverend Father, as you can see. So, Father Tony, please, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. On my right, I have John Anene, whom you have seen in this panel, have had different discussions over the months and weeks, and he's here to bring another perspective to our discussion. So, please, John Anene, welcome again.
My pleasure.
All right. On my further right is Dr. Wilfred Achalono, a clinical pharmacist and administrator. He's a Nigerian, and he's an American who's been here for a long time, and he understands both cultures and both aspects of the issue we're going to discuss. So please welcome Mr. Wilfred.
Thank you very much.
All right. So viewers, please, again, the topic today is the moral and ethnic issues faced by Nigeria. And I'll give you a little background why we picked this topic. We know the world is about 7 billion people and more, and we're all exposed to information flow from all parts of the world. And somebody has described the world as a global village. And as a global village, in any village, as it were, when things happen in one end, the other side will feel it. So we have had cross-cultural information transferred from international communities to us. Televisions, radio, we are bombarded by this information. The social media, we are bombarded by information. So Nigeria, as a nation, is not isolated. So this information flow in both directions. So recently, this law was passed, and people were concerned. Why do we have such a law? And people in the international community wondered why we pass such laws. And as a Nigerian, we want to get the view of all Nigerians to see what this law, why this law was passed, and what this law meant to us, and how we are viewed as Nigerians in the world. So today, we're going to start the discussion. We're going to open the discussion, and any of my panelists are going to pick it up. So the issue here is the Same Sex Act law that was signed by President Jonathan recently, and the furor that aroused. So please, Anene, Achalono, Father Eseke, you can chime in anyway. Anybody who wants to open the discussion, please feel free, come in. We just want to see what your views are, and see if we can have some knowledge or information about this law that was passed. Please, anybody?
Okay, let me chime in quickly here.
Okay.
Same-sex marriage in Nigeria as a topic, but actually it is a controversial issue all over the world. So Nigeria in that particular situation is not an exception. I guess that's why it's on the topic. And I think to explain why President Jonathan signed it into law, the law has already been passed by the Nigerian legislature. So if he didn't sign it into law, it wasn't going to be a law. When he signed it, then it became a law. So it's now a Nigerian law in a way. In contrast, in Uganda, Ugandan parliament also passed same-sex law, but the president of Uganda refused to sign it. And so it's not a law in Uganda. My take, I'm sure also the take of this panel, is there are economic explanations on why Nigeria did, political explanations, economic explanations. There are all kind of explanations why it's a law in Nigeria. There's also foreign explanations in a sense that Nigeria is an oil-producing country. Let's start with foreign explanation. And so we don't need all the international financial pressure not to sign it into law. Unlike in Uganda, which actually essentially depends on foreign aid. Nigeria has enough money that they could bluff the international pressure about it. I want to quickly mention, I'll come back to it, about marriage in African setting, in African culture. Marriage in African culture. Again, I'm trying to explain why Nigeria passed it. It's not a personal point of view. Marriage is about procreation. It's more about procreation rather than just personal joy. In the Western world, sex is individualistic. It could be procreation as also a pleasure. But African tradition is marriage has a particular function in society. Not only African tradition, but also in Muslim world. And so that might be one of the reasons, because same sex cannot reproduce. It's just a hypothesis. But recall in African culture, some African culture, women marry women. So the same-sex marriage, but they marry women so that they could bring children when the husband has died. So, so in a sense, there's a cultural issue here, why it simply passed through a Nigerian setting. Also, I want to quickly mention that Nigeria, Uganda, South Africa, and Kenya and Ghana were pooled by Pew Research Center. And apart from South Africa, most of sub-Saharan Africa are opposed to same-sex marriage. So in that situation, Nigeria is not an outlier, it's kind of follow the trend in Africa, apart from South Africa. And South Africa, I could explain because they came in from racist appetite. So anything that touches on discrimination, the government goes against it. So South African government is for same-sex marriage. The South African society, in the research you did, is actually not. Let me kind of stop.
Well, you mentioned a few things that touched the nerve here. You're telling us that the ban on same-sex marriage in Nigeria has some international connotation and financial connotation. And you went ahead to tell us about African view about marriage. And marriage mainly, as you put it, is mainly for procreation, and the enjoyment part of it is secondary or non-existent. That's what you said. Then you touched briefly on maybe there are cultures in Africa where women have married women, but the reason differs. But if you say woman marries woman, are those things legal first? And is it general in the whole culture there, or to specific culture? Is it accepted like a country in Nigeria? Because a woman marries another woman, that plays into the Same-Sex Marriage Act, though. Just explain that women marry women first before we go further. So let me not preempt it.
Yeah, that's kind of cultural anthropology actually in certain Nigerian cultural settings. Because in Africa, actually in Nigeria, there's three kinds of law. There's a customary law, there's Sharia law, and there's canon law, which is Western law, and they're all part of our Nigerian legal system. So within these three legal systems, so when we talk about Nigerian law, customary law, yes, it's acceptable in that particular situation.
Any examples, perchance? If you don't want to, you don't have to.
No, I know in the Igbo tradition, I'm talking about what I know. In the Igbo customary tradition, if a husband married to a woman, because not only talk about marriage in Igbo tradition, and the woman did not have a male child, and the husband dies, and the wife could not reproduce past the reproductive age, that wife, with the consulting with the husband's family, could go ahead and marry another woman to produce children that will inherit the husband, past husbands. Because children, family in Nigeria is in Igbo custom is collective, it's not individualistic. In marrying to the particular family, actually, it's family that marries. It's not individualistic like in the West. So it's muted. It's traditional customary law.
You mentioned about women marrying women in Igbo land, which we all know is not a personal, sexual relationship. Like you mentioned, this is a cultural thing to fulfill some role in the traditional marriage system. Can you explain that to me, please?
Yes, it's not about sexual relations between two women.
Okay.
It's about the elder wife marrying a younger wife, so that
the husband,
yes, or if the husband is there, so that they could produce children,
procreate in that family,
so that the family will continue to
the lineage of that family.
Exactly.
So it's not that two of them are doing anything.
No, two of them
I get you correct.
Exactly.
Okay, good. So it's just to marry a wife for the family, to take the name of the family forward.
Yes.
Okay, and that kind of marriage, if we put it, is not the type same-sex marriage they're looking at.
It's all completely cultural.
It's a cultural thing.
It's actually to have children.
Okay.
Because apparently.
So it's an arrangement.
It's an arrangement. Maybe the first wife was unable to have children. So she has to marry somebody for the husband.
So she supports. Okay, good.
So like the same sex in the West, which is simply about hedonism, about pleasure.
Okay.
This is about procreation.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Continuing the family. Please get it.
In any case, it's not only something in Africa. Even in the Old Testament, when Abraham couldn't have a baby with his wife, the wife implored the maid.
Okay.
And then when the maid had a child, the maid became very arrogant. So that was where all the dynamics. So it looks like. Some people are like, oh well, is it only in our Igbo land it happens? It's something even in the. There are a lot of marriage forms that existed in many parts of the world before the world religions of Christianity and Islam came into some of those cultures. Even in the Bible, you find levirate marriages where if a brother dies without a child, the brother can now take on the wife of, and in fact that was one of the key questions some of the Pharisees and Sadducees thought they were going to challenge Jesus with, by asking him, okay, here is a situation. 7 brothers died and each of them kept having the same wife. Now when they get to heaven, who is good? And then Jesus was like, hey, wait a minute. And so the point is, there are cultures where they have different forms of marriages. And even in the Bible, there are different forms of marriages. But depending on what is your religious faith, you may eventually separate what you think is the kind of marriage that fits into God's will that you believe. So if you are a Muslim, there might be some kind of marriages that are sanctioned by the Islamic, Islamic faith. The point I'm trying to make is that there might not be one faith, structure that will sit on every culture. However, we cannot succumb to the fact that, okay, this has been in the culture, and therefore the culture is this self-fulfilling structure that takes care of everything. Cultures evolve, and cultures are dynamic. At the same time, faith too is dynamic. So if Africa, particularly Nigeria, has accepted Christianity, Islam, what is the lens by which we shall now begin to restructure or reevaluate the marriage forms that we practice in our society as it is today.
Okay, Father Tony, thank you first. You raised the two issues there, two key words. Culture evolves and faith also is dynamic. Culture evolves, faith is dynamic. That brings us into this argument of this same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage, or let's go by call it what it is, lesbians, and homosexuals have been members of this world for a long time. And people who are against this issue have cited the Sodom and Gomorrah and the wrath of God that was visited upon that city, and the city was destroyed. We agree with that. But coming to our culture, evolution, and faith, dynamic faith, these issues have been grappled with by international communities, especially Britain and United States, and even Europe are struggling with this issue. So it is not new to them. And if we use our morality and our faith as what make us to hate, or let me not use the word, it's a strong word, to not accept this group of people and promulgate laws that are going to hurt people in the long run, how are we going to feel? Like in these cultures who have grappled with this issue, take the Anglican Church for an example. They have dealt with this issue and eventually they've ordained their own Anglican bishop who is a homosexual. Do they really support homosexual, or they support the person who can bring people to their fold or work for them? I don't know. Even recently, the Pope of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, was asked this question. And what he said was simple. Who is he to judge? He's not here to condemn people. He is a leader of a group and leader of humanities who want to bring people to God. So if you condemn people, as it were, based on their sexual orientation, it's a big problem. So this is where some parties are, arguing this aspect of the issue, while some other people have taken this religious and moral aspect to the T, to the letter T, that they can't be swayed and they can't change. So please, Father Seke, if you want to elaborate on this religious or cultural aspect of faith is dynamic and culture evolves, please give us a little insight on this.
Yeah, my angle on this, especially in terms of culture and faith, is that, every culture has got its way of sexual expression.
Okay.
You cannot walk onto the street of Nigeria, for instance, and begin to kiss in the airport and do things that, well, it's legal and normal. You are married, you have every right to it, but people will like, wait a minute, because our culture it's not like we don't know that couples express love, but cultures have their different forms of love expression and sexual expression. And I do not think there's any one form that is better than the other. If in the West, a couple can stand out in the tarmac or in the airport and do whatever lovers do, and it's acceptable, that is fine. But if somebody in Africa wants to take that form of love expression in America, that becomes some kind of a cultural imposition.
Okay.
At the same time, if somebody in America thinks that their sexual expression and their way of expression has to be what should sit in every other culture, that has also become some kind of hegemony. And so for me, it's about allowing each culture have its autonomy to remain itself, discover itself, evolve within its system what it recognizes as a sexual expression that is compatible with their culture. And so part of my problem with what is going on now in terms of homosexuality, going back to what you said, is that at the end of the day, we need to separate the sentiments from the philosophies.
Okay.
We need to separate the morality from the legality.
Okay.
Because something can be moral without being, or rather something can be legal but might be immoral. Okay. Just as it has happened in some other issues. So when people tend to mix the two, that is where sometimes confusion remains. We may have to separate legality and deal with it separately, and then morality, handle it separately.
So in this case, if you want to have time to, collect your thoughts. We'll come back to you. But I want the input of Dr. Acholano on this first, and we'll look at it again.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is a very important issue. The time is right for it. President Obama brought it up to the issue, and then it becomes all of a sudden a world topic of discussion. With the Olympic coming in Russia, the liberals here are taking it over concerning a same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
For us, having been here a long time and brought up as a Catholic, for me, it seems to me, from my own cultural perspective, it's an abomination.
Okay.
Culturally, and from where I was brought up, a man don't marry a man,
Okay.
a woman does not marry a man. It does not happen.
Okay.
Based on that culture and the believing God, religious aspect of it, it's just not right thing to do. That's
Okay.
my own perspective. However, my culture, as Father Tony just said, may be totally different from other people's culture. My custom, the custom by which I was brought up, may be totally different from other cultures. And the traditions may be totally different. So the challenge becomes now, is it right for me to impose my own culture to every other culture that differs from mine, or else punish them because they are not enlightened to my own culture? So I see it as something that is very, very touchy in so many areas. And my greatest concern about it is with regard to Nigeria. If we make or legislate who marries who, and then punish them for their self-expression of love, how does that differ from Islamic religion of Sharia?
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So you brought two main issues here. Your point is well taken, based on your own personal belief and the way you brought up morally and your religious view. Yes, it is not right thing to do. But like you said, you don't want to impose your religion and your moral all over the country and legislate your religion and moral as it is. This brings to the question, why did this same-sex marriage issue become a worldwide phenomenon? West, let's look at it. It started from the West. In the West, as the society evolved, a lot of basic things came to the open. First, this issue of sexuality, people have been living together. Maybe they invested their money together. Maybe one partner is sick in the hospital. You cannot go there and sign consent for them to receive treatment because you are not married. And if you're not married by law here, there are a lot of things that you're limited in doing. Okay? You maybe have money in the bank. Maybe you own property together and the partner dies. You cannot inherit that money. It goes into, government takes over that money because you are not a blood relative and you have no legal binding in marriage. So this is some of the reason why they have looked at this issue from a human rights issue. That these people have lived together, despite the fact that society don't like them because of religious reasons, moral issues, they have lived together. They love one another as human beings. So why do we now use our own, like you said, moral and religion to separate them from themselves? Simple, go religion. I'm not on a dead priest here, but everybody would think religion is a personal view between man and his God. Before the religion came to Africa, we had our gods, all right? And we see how people were doing good, like you said, even though morality, Africans were not doing this, or whatever you said. So religion is a man and his God. So if we think we have our own God, and we believe we're going to go to heaven and walk with God, why do we begin to separate certain people and make them non-human or punish them for what they do? Are we God? So it's a lot of issue here that we are struggling with. Please.
Just to take you up a little bit on some of the last comments.
Yes.
And that's precisely where my argument remains.
Yes.
That some of the structural issues in the West, in America, like being able to have access to your partner if he's sick and all that, it's something that is the social problem of the West.
Good.
And that is because the family structure in the West is not the same thing as the family structure in Africa.
Right.
Now, since the problems of this, the social problems of the West has been dictated, is what has dictated the push to legalize same-sex marriage.
Right.
Do we have the same family structure as for the West to be able to pump in money to some clubs and groups to push the agenda through the African countries and shuffle the agenda through their throat because of the economic aids they give to them? Without recognizing that they have their own family structures and social structures that may not be the same as what is going on in the West.
Good. So this is the question that other people have asked also in this whole issue. Why did this same-sex marriage become an issue in Nigeria? Have we had same-sex couples in Nigeria filing to get married in any Nigeria court? If there are, please want to see where they filed and what they've done about it. That is not an issue that has been pushed by these people. So government may be preemptive. I don't know what they know. Are they being preemptive to prevent this issue from coming in, or they are being pressured from other areas that we don't know? But have we seen gays in Nigeria who have gone to the court asking for this right that the Western world have? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Not to be naive, there were a group of people in Nigeria who formed the Rainbow Church. That's a fact in Lagos, where the gays and the homosexuals found their own niche where they worship God, the Rainbow Church, and eventually one of them, I think the Reverend Macaulay, I think that way, from Britain, eventually was run out of the country for fear that it's going to be attacked. True, maybe the issue is creeping in, but how bad it is that now we make it a big law and make it a national issue? That's another question I would like to answer too.
Yeah. The kind of interesting point we're seeing on cultural dynamics, there's a cliche of a clash of cultural civilizations,
Right.
as well as dialogue of cultural civilizations. So this seems to me to be a clash. If the West will evolve same-sex marriage or same-sex union, which part to their own democratic process, be accepted by the Supreme Court in the United States that you're ruling, that's okay.
Right.
So you part to the democratic process. If the West were to impose it on Africa or Middle East, then that would be a clash of civilization. That's what we're seeing.
Okay.
The civilization should be dialogue.
Okay.
That was every cultural we bring to the table, global culture to the table.
Okay.
And so, good point you made about our political system. Our democratic process is about democracy, which will be there in 1999.
Yes.
It went through the democratic process for the National Assembly to pass it, for the president to sign it.
Okay.
So that's a democracy at work.
Okay.
In that sense. The American setting, that democracy at work. The other way around, for same-sex to be recognized through the Supreme Court. So in that particular situation, let's explain why the president signed it, kind of getting into political dynamics.
Yes.
He's going to run for election next year.
Okay.
And he's going to run for election next year if you are in his position. And the
Gets to my table.
Yes,
The
and
bill gets to my table.
yes, and the Christians and the Muslims and the customary people will say, that's what we want.
Okay.
If you want to win an election,
Yes.
you better do the people's will. So kind of why did he sign it? Now, what the why question? Not that I'm saying,
Okay. So,
Yeah, so political, it's a political game.
okay, but why do we make issue of this nature and sensitivity a political game? Because once you make it there, Nigerians don't, the laws are there, but they are not well executed. Peoples are going to take law into their own hands. You call somebody he's gay and the law say he's punishable by 14 years in prison. With a law and a system that does not regulate itself, if a man is pointed out in society as gay, that's going to tarnish him, that's going to ruin his business, ruin his reputation, and eventually might even get killed. So if a government has put a stamp on something, it legitimizes it, and with that, anything can happen. I'm going to extend this argument, though it's not, but we see people in the street who are being lynched without getting to the court. And we heard now that people in Bauchi State, some of the men there who are suspected to be homosexuals, have been arrested, and are they going to really go to court and get tried? How are they going to prove they are homosexual? They may not have been caught. They've not been caught in the act. They didn't file an application for same-sex marriage, but they're going to be harassed now. Somebody's going to arrest them and imprison them or probably kill them because the government wants to win election or make a big issue, a non-issue, a big issue. It's complicated. It's complicated. So yes, people have their moral views. There are different things in morality that offends our sensibility. But do we legislate all? We want to know, please.
Well, as far making it an illegal act for individuals to express their feeling for each other and make it punishable without defining the extent of the involvement of the individuals, it brings a lot of problems, because if you just see some individual, just as they said, and call them homosexual without any adequate proof, and go point finger, how does the law investigate whether they're actually homosexuals or not? It's almost like, okay, so sure, man, I'll take you to a club. We are together. We go to sleep over somewhere in a hotel or something on a seminar. So somebody say, they are homosexual because I saw them together.
Their wife didn't come with them.
Their wife didn't come with them.
Where is their wife?
And then some will wait for you outside and stone you to death. And the law is on their side because you are homosexual. You didn't have your wife with you. So I think it's actually extremely very, very extreme. I don't think such law should have been passed. I don't think it should have been signed without it being debated and looked upon by the society in general before it becomes a law.
I know my trend of opinion so far in the discussion has always kind of leaned to these cultural dynamics that we talked about not too long ago. And that is why I personally think that when there's an issue of moral resistance or cultural resistance, I do not think legal involvement is the best way to resist it. If you feel that your culture is being, intimidated or being oppressed by another culture, then you find a way to inject more animation into your culture, different rather than just making laws. Because truth be told, who are the people who are going to execute these laws in Nigeria? the executive system in Nigeria itself is sick.
It's a problem.
It's sick. So resisting the kind of cultural impositions that we see would, for me, in my opinion, would have been the government would have said, okay, how do we empower our youths? How do we educate our young people? Because I may not have the data to support it, but I do know that there are some young kids who have no jobs, and like a group comes and say, hey, here are cards, just carry the same-sex card and go on the street and demonstrate. People could do anything. You might find people who are going to the different embassies now looking for visas because they feel they are oppressed.
That's true.
So it's more complicated than just passing a law and say, okay, 14 years of, it's not enough. Our culture is vulnerable. Our beliefs as Africa is vulnerable. And if the government wants to do something to resist the imposition of other cultures, then you have to empower our culture.
Okay, thank you again, viewers. This discussion is going in the right direction here. We're looking at the moral, the ethical issues, cultural issues that preempted this passage of this law. Well, the two sides are there: the religious side, the economic and the political side. The word that is quite out there is the cultural imposition, and this is the common view of Nigerians who have spoken against this. I listened to a pastor in Nigeria, and his word was we're tired of this foreign government imposing their culture on us, and if they want to take their money, let them take their money, and we don't need their money, we have oil, we can take care of ourselves. Very good. And other people have said certain things, but looking at it from a humanistic point of view, humanistic point of view, God made Adam and Eve, and some of them are coined it, God did not make Adam and Steve. So the question is, who made Steve, and what do we do with Steve? And I'm going to come back here as a person. I came to this country, in Nigeria, the homosexuality is underground. People who went to schools in Nigeria must have heard, but I've known a few homosexuals. They are doing their own thing, they're in the society. Coming to America here, and I practice as a psychiatrist, and I have seen people, parents, mothers, fathers, bringing their children who they suspect, these are American citizens, Caucasians, bringing their children, daughters, male, female, who they suspect are gay, asking for medical help. And as a psychiatrist, I will tell you, we have attempted to classify homosexuality, gays and lesbians as a disorder in the American, statistic, manual of illness as an illness until about 1970s, where we took it out of our manual because we have tried various methods, psychotherapy, we have tried medication, any kind of therapy have been tried, it doesn't work. Religious people have prayed for these people, it doesn't work. Okay? So this gay issue is not something that you legislate on, it's something you work with. It's some natural force that we have to look at. People look at it and say, the spawn of the devil. God did not make Adam and Eve. So who made them? Who made these stiff people? I don't know. But what it is we should embrace them with love, work with them to the best of our knowledge, which I think some religious group, like I said before, and I'm saying again, have dealt with this. They have debated it to death. The Anglican Church, the other churches. Okay? So if we stop gays, we're going to stop women, we're going to stop other minority groups. So they are looked upon as a minority group. So it's a human rights issue. Let's be sensitive to this issue. Let's be sensitive to this issue. Both sides of the argument are right. But again, it's a big issue that we have to grapple with. In my own mind, before I draw the curtain on this, if you guys have anything to add to it, please do. But I think this issue is going to come up again. We have not seen the end of it. And I still believe that as the society evolves, like you said, there's a cultural dynamic and there's a faith, dynamic too. Things change. Things change. Even down south in United States of America, gay is still a taboo. In certain people, they don't talk about it and they don't want it in their neighborhood, but it's there. Okay? So, example would be the hatred that was generated about this issue. Shepherd, a 23-year-old white male, was killed in Wyoming. What is his crime? He was gay. 23-year-old. Not that he caused any problem. He wasn't caught in a sex act or anything. Somebody pointed a finger at him and he was killed. A kid killed himself in New Jersey because he and his partner had some sexual thing to do, and somebody broadcast the image all over the place, and the kid, killed himself, committed suicide. So they're going to have this kind of issues in our hand. And anybody who does that, they will really feel good. Are we serving God or human by projecting this? I don't know. But these are the issues we have to look at while we work on this. Please, anybody have anything to
Yeah, just quickly, it's controversial. It's a bad law. To talk about law, political dynamics, I agree with you, it's a bad law. Because, like the American situation, it was also a bad law until it went to the Supreme Court. So, this is actually, in a point, there is nothing to worry about. Because the issue now is the judicial system protects individual rights.
Yeah.
So what needs to be done is for same-sex couple to challenge that law up to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. A Nigerian constitution will protect individual rights, group rights, just like the American Supreme Court just ruled that, ruled sometime in June. It's going to take time. But just to challenge it, so the democracy protects everybody. It protects the interests of the individual,
the majority,
and the interests of the majority too. So in this particular situation, majority try to project their own culture, which they think is foreign imperialism, which is a culture that the US is trying to kind of impose their own value system. But individual too are protected by the Constitution. All they need to do is to challenge it to the Supreme Court, so their individual rights to marry who they want to marry. Let's see what the Supreme Court says. And so it's an open discussion, open topic.
Well, folks, you heard it. This is, Wilfred, do you have anything to add to it?
Just a comment from what is said. If Nigeria is a law-abiding society, and if people are not made to be above the laws, they are the law being equal to every human and every individual. It would have been said that that's fine. Now, but as far as seen it, maybe from the outside microscope, it doesn't look to me that the judiciary system, as we have it, caters for the individual who has not in his pocket.
Well.
Yes, please. My final word would be as a minister,
Yes.
looking at it from a purely religious perspective, we fundamentally believe that every human being is ontologically good. Acts may be sinful, but human beings are never sinful by our intrinsic nature. And that, I believe, is what most religions of the world, profess. That every human being is good. We all make mistakes, and that is what acts are. We all have frailties and weaknesses. And so, the core of every religion is to love. And when all is said and done, it's all about loving our neighbors as ourselves. And if it's in that sense, it doesn't matter if it is race or gender or sexuality or class. What makes our society a better place is when we are able to separate the dirty water and love the baby just as the baby.
Well, folks, I couldn't say it better. A moral issue, religious issue, is just right in the right place. So please, get back to us. Questions, concerns. If there's anything that will offend you, please write to us. Let us know. Make a point known. We may air it again. We may debate it again. This is just an open discussion. This is Nigerian Diaspora's view. Contact us. Talk to us. We're here. We're open. We listen. So thank you again for listening, and thank you for coming in. John Adenim, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you again, Chalono. Thank you, Father Eseke. Viewers, thank you. It's in your hand. Thank you.
Anything you dey do, anywhere you dey